Welcome to HRER Webinar Series 2026. Today we have Khadija Kelalek, who is an independent postdoctoral researcher who specializes in women's rights in North Africa. She also works on migration and integration in Europe. She holds a PhD from the University of Leicester since 2023 and has since then done postdoctoral research on women's rights in Algeria, Germany, Turkey, Zambia, and Ethiopia. You're very welcome, Khadija.
Thank you very much, Biat, for the lovely introduction. Welcome to everyone who's with us today. So without further ado, I will start introducing my research. Today I'm going to speak about a very important research to me, which is an article published by the Human Rights Education Review in 2025 entitled "Education is My Weapon: Media Misrepresentations as a Barrier to Algerian Women's Rights in Higher Education." Next slide, please, Bia. In this presentation, I will speak about a very interesting phenomenon about women's access to higher education in Algeria. I will set the context to it. I will speak a bit about the history of Algerian women through time and their situation within today's Algerian society. I will introduce my theoretical framework. I will explain my methodology briefly. I will speak about the key findings of my research, and then I chose to end up my presentation with a list of recommendations to policymakers and feminist researchers in Algeria. So just to set some context, I'll take you back in time with me to 2013, when a very famous, a very well-known Algerian TV channel broadcasted a rather controversial report that is literally entitled "When Seekers of Knowledge Turn into Prostitutes." The report allegedly says that some female university students in university accommodation or university residence halls would pretend to be sick after curfew time to leave their accommodation using the help of an ambulance driver that the report names HRER. The ambulance driver would come to their accommodation and pick them up, not towards the hospital, but towards places where they would meet their intimate male partners. Now, this is a very considered as a very serious breach to the morals of the conservative Algerian society, and has spread like fire through society on social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and through time it has become not only a discourse that you can see every day in social media platforms, but part of a popular culture that embedded itself within Algerian society. An example of that is the picture that you see in front of you, which is a screenshot that I took from a YouTube song that is present and visible to the public. The song portrays female university students in Algeria as sexually available women. And you can see the ambulance referring to the ambulance driver, and the story of female university students using the help of the ambulance driver to go meet their male partners. This is only one example of the many that you could find on YouTube and Instagram portraying female university students as sexually available women. The link to the YouTube song is in the slide. Next slide, please. So the key issue here is that, as I mentioned, this is not an isolated social media incident that you would see on your phone and then just turn your phone and get on with your life. It has become part of a culture that views female university students as morally suspect. And my research question, therefore, is how do these misrepresentations of female university students have the potential to influence women's sense of agency, and women's safe access to public space in Algeria. Next slide. Okay, to better understand the context, we need to understand the situation of the Algerian woman within her society. I'll take you further back in time with me to 1830, when Algeria was colonized by France for a period of 132 years. That's from 1830 to 1962. Algerian women at the time were already viewed by Algerian society in two interconnected ways. The first one is that they were viewed by the family itself and the society as repositories of honor. And they were also seen as repositories of the society's cultural authenticity. The French colonizer, on the other hand, is known for its assimilation policy. Some historians call it Frenchification, which is an attempt to turn the colonized society into a French one. And being aware and cognizant through time that the Algerian society viewed the Algerian woman as a symbol of its cultural authenticity, Algerian women became targets of that assimilation process, which in turn saw a resistance, a very big resistance from the Algerian society. And women through time became symbolic battlegrounds between the colonizer and the society as repositories of honor. This, next slide, please. This through time has led to almost a total exclusion of Algerian women from public life, that by 1954, only 4.5% of Algerian women knew how to read and write, 3% were employed outside their houses, and less than 4% attended university. Next slide. Fortunately for Algerian women, this has slightly changed after the independence of the country due to three reasons. The first is Algerian women's well-known participation in the War of National Liberation side to side with Algerian men in public space between 1954 and 1962. That's a period of 8 years. The second is the 1976 Algerian constitution that, after the independence of the country, recognized and acknowledged legally Algerian women's role in liberating their country and regarded them as equal under the law. However, it had a bit that mentioned that there were certain points of emancipation needed for women, and that Algerian women were responsible to achieve that emancipation themselves. The most important reason that I find was enabling to Algerian women to regain their access to public space is the state's compulsory education to children aged 5 to 16 and its policy of free education for all that is still going until today. This was interrupted in 1984 with Algeria's very famous 1984 Family Code that legally institutionalized patriarchy by recognizing or holding Algerian women as mothers, daughters, and wives of men. However, Algerian women were already back in large numbers by the time, due to, thanks to actually, their participation in the War of National Liberation, and thanks to the system of compulsory and free education. The law had limited effect on the presence of the Algerian woman in public space. Algerian women constituted in 1995 50% of doctors, 48% of nurses, and 1/3 of judges. Next slide, please. Now, going back to today, there's a very interesting statistic about women's education in Algeria, is that 60% of its university graduates are women. Notice this point because we will come back to it in a bit. The 1984 1984 family code was slightly amended as well by criminalizing domestic violence and harassment in the streets. However, I find that other points still need amendment, mainly points of femicide and honor killing. A most recent one, in August 2025, Algeria lifted its reservation on Article 15, Section 4 of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or what is known as CEDAW, which grants women basically the right of mobility. This, however, needs harmonization as well with domestic laws, and I've written an article on that as well. A point that I find very promising and that I'm waiting for the fruits of is Algeria's recent presidential speech that took place in May 2026, where Algeria's president, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, recognized again Algerian women's role in liberating the country, in bringing the financial and the legal and the societal gains that all Algerian population is benefiting of right now, and said a very important point about integrating Algerian women into political leadership and representation, not only not to tick boxes. That is the bit that I find interesting. The state is not looking to tick boxes, but is looking to integrate women as part of the Algerian society, and also as almost 50% of society itself. So we will wait and see the benefits and the fruits of this speech, hopefully in the near future. Next slide, please. Okay, so far you might have noticed a contradiction in what I said, and you might have noticed a kind of pattern. The contradiction is, if I'm saying that 60% of university graduates are women, you might ask the question, why is this study necessary? I will answer you in the findings section. The second is the pattern. You might have seen that the journey of the Algerian woman, it was bumpy and fluctuating. You might see like rights going up, then going down, participation in the War of Liberation, then the 1984 Family Code, then accessing public space in large numbers, then social media stereotypes. To understand this, I used Giddens' theory of structuration, that explains that our social life is governed by a group of rules and laws that he calls structures. They govern how we live, they shape our lives as individuals, but also as societies. Giddens, however, says that we are not passive recipients of those cultures, that through time, whether as individuals or as collective beings, the human being is an agent that changes structure through time. And we have seen that in the literature about female university students. So structuration provided a very good model for me to understand the mutual influence between the Algerian woman and her society through time. Next slide, please. Okay, as far as my methodology is concerned, I was interested in understanding the practical stories of female university students. I wanted to understand their experiences. I wanted to see how they interacted with social structures, how they dealt with a relatively new phenomenon on social media that brushes education as with the brush of immorality and sees it as a malicious tool. So I was really interested in understanding, exploring how they would interact with such discourse and how they reply to it. That's why I used the narrative approach, which is used to gain in-depth understanding and exploration of experiences. So I recruited a sample of 20 Algerian female university students between 2020 and 2022 using semi-structured online interviews because there were COVID international travel restrictions, whether in the UK and Algeria during that time. The interviews lasted between 1 hour and just above 2 hours as well. Ethical considerations, of course, ensured anonymity, informed consent, and I focused a lot on the ethics of care because I was interested in learning about the stories of my participants, which might have triggered some unpleasant memories about discourses that portray female university students as sexually available women. So my participants were reminded in the informed consent forms, participant information sheet, and verbally before the interviews and within the interview that their well-being was the top priority of this research. Um, Data analysis, for data analysis, I used Braun and Clark's 6-step thematic analysis approach to understand my data. Next slide, please. So, to answer the question, if women constitute 60% of university students in Algeria, why is this study necessary? I've got 3 reasons for that. The first is that all my participants said that persistent stereotypes on social media platforms portray female university students as in 3 interlinked ways. First of all, they are seen as sexually available women because they leave their houses unaccompanied or unsurveyed by a male patriarch. They are free to do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, especially those who live in university accommodation who spend the night without the surveillance of their families. The second is that they are seen unfit for marriage, which is related to the first one. They are seen as unfit for marriage for 2 reasons. The first one is because they're sexually available, they are considered to be not pious, not ready for marriage. The second is that they are seen as untrained in homemaking skills because they spend most of the time in education. They do not have the time to learn the cooking skills, for example, the nurturing skills, and so forth. The third one is also linked to the first stereotype. All of my participants said that they are seen to be using their perceived sexual availability to gain access to careers and to steal men's jobs. One of my participants, who used the name Sunflower as a pseudonym, said that they say that the female university student is far from her family. She can do whatever she wants. She's not the ideal Algerian woman who preserves her honor. Notice the notion of the Algerian woman as a representative and as a repository of family's honor and cultural authenticity that I spoke about in the literature. Next slide, please. Okay, secondly, to answer the question, why is this study necessary? The participants reported, and I mentioned this earlier, that this is not only on social media, it transfers to real life. They mentioned that these stereotypes influence them in 3 interlinked ways. First of all, the emotional distress of viewing and seeing such stereotype or such a negative discourse being spread about them on social media platforms. They mentioned mainly that they feel sad and perhaps angry as well when they think that their families are seeing this discourse as well. The second is that they feel unsafe in public space, and I will share Duha's experience on that with you today. And the third one is a concern, a shared concern about reduced future access to educational opportunities if these stereotypes and misrepresentations are still on social media platforms and are still developing and keeping a negative image about female university students. Duha, one of my participants, explained that women are blamed for leaving their houses to go study or work instead of staying at home, their natural habitat. The woman has to stay at home. If she leaves the house, she has to take responsibility for the consequences. Whatever happens to her outside her house is her fault because she left her home. Even if she leaves to study or work, whether she gets attacked or raped is her fault for leaving the house. First of all, who told her to leave? And second, what was she wearing? So notice the culture of victim blaming for the women who access public space, and also notice the very traditional dichotomy of the male public domain versus the female private sphere of the home. Next slide, please. Thirdly, this study is important because the participants explained the nature of some segments of the Algerian society, and they shared that they recognize that Algerian women have gained many rights through time, including access to higher education, including access to jobs, but the structure of the Algerian society in practice remains very traditional, and they mentioned dichotomies of the male provider and the female nurturer that are still remaining dominant gender frameworks within the country. Against this view, they described the importance of education in their lives. Education to them was not a tool towards a degree or a career as much as it was a tool towards independence from the control of patriarchal structures on their lives. They used the term, the expression, education is my weapon, a lot to explain that education enabled financial independence to them. If they are financially independent, they regain their sense of agency and they regain their sense of control over their lives. This also explains, according to the participants, why society is opposing education. It is not opposing the idea of education itself. It is opposing education as a tool towards women breaking free from structures that control their lives. Next slide, please. Okay, I mentioned in the introduction that I chose to end my presentation with a list of recommendations. So throughout the presentation, we understand that education, the fight for education between the Algerian woman as an individual agent and the Algerian society is not a fight about education itself, but is a fight about power and change. If Algerian women get access to education and financial independence, they will gain that power to change society's dominance over their lives. Society, on the other hand, does not want that to happen. To not generalize, we're not going to say society, but some segments, some patriarchal segments of the Algerian society fight that the attempts of Algerian female university students to gain access to education and therefore gain access to financial independence and work, and therefore access to freedom from subordination. I've got a list of recommendations to policymakers in Algeria and feminist researchers, most importantly. Digital spaces right now in Algeria, some Algerian social media platforms still share persisting negative misrepresentations of female university students that I find should be addressed by policymakers and feminist researchers in Algeria. Of course, we recognize that there is freedom of speech, but also we recognize that there is a dissemination of a harming discourse that not only affects the lives of individual Algerian female university students, but has the potential to affect the progress of society because it is spreading stereotypes about about the education of half of its population. Financial independence of Algerian women. Algerian women is a very important point as well that I would like to stress. Doing research about it right now. A point that I didn't share in my findings due to time restrictions is that all my participants said that rural Algerian women are the most affected by those stereotypes. First of all, because in rural spaces, patriarchy is still deeply enshrined within the structures. And second is the lack of infrastructure, the lack of transportation for these women to gain access to higher education. So these 2 points are also important for us feminist researchers, feminist activists, and policymakers to address, study, and work on in the future. I think that's it from me today. Next slide, please. So if you've got any questions, that's my email, and you could visit my LinkedIn profile as well. Please feel free to contact me if you've got any questions regarding my presentation or any comments. The list of references is in the next slide. Thank you very much, Biat, and thank you for everyone who's watching us.
Thank you so much, Khadija. We really enjoyed reading your paper, and I really recommend everyone to read it. Thank you.
Thank you.